My daughter is going through puberty and has started to develop. There's a boy in her class with a filthy mouth who says she's ussy because her chest is big. This has caused my daughter to become self-conscious, slouching and hunching over, even wearing long sleeves in the summer, covering herself up completely. The teacher doesn't care, and the school doesn't take any interest. The other boys' parents say, children are innocent. What's the point of holding a child accountable? I dragged the little brat into the bathroom in front of the entire school and first fed him toilet cleaner, then plunged a toilet brush into his mouth. Since nobody has taught you how to be a human being, I will. Finally, after working overtime to finish the company project, the client was very satisfied, and my boss gave me a short vacation. My wife booked a table at my daughter's favorite restaurant. I drove to my daughter's school to wait for her after school. I waited for a long time but didn't see her. Then I heard a boy next to me say, "I'll tell you. There's an atomic bomb in our class." So slutty. What atomic bomb? His friend asked. The boy cupped his chest with both hands and made a very vulgar gesture. Right here. It's as big as an bomb. Must be touched a lot. The more you touch it, the bigger it gets. Oh, his friend exclaimed in realization. I couldn't help but frown, thinking that kids these days are maturing early. When I was his age, I only knew how to compete with my friends for spicy strips. I beat him up, leaving him with a black eye and bruises all over his body. Then the little thing's mother arrived. A short and fat middle-aged woman with the same hairstyle as a landlady. I thought to myself, does this person have some kind of intellectual disability? Can't she see that? So I stopped for a moment and patiently explained to her, I'm hitting this person. To my surprise, she wasn't grateful at all. She tried to push me away, but I didn't budge, and she fell instead. Thud. She landed right on son's head, causing him to bleed from the nose. My son. Holding her son's face in her hand. How could you be beaten up like this? You're bleeding, I said honestly. That was from you sitting on him. The little thing lay in his mother's arms, crying loudly. His mother trembled, took out her phone, and pointed it at me. I'm calling the police right now. I'm going to have you arrested. I want you to go to jail. The little thing also screamed. Death penalty. Execute him. I was getting tired of hitting him, but now I was energized again. Thinking that the police would take a while to arrive and I had nothing better to do, I might as well play by hitting him. I grabbed the little thing's leg and lifted him up, then pounded him some more. His mother tried to stop me, but she was no match for me. The police arrived, after understanding the circumstances. I paid 300 yuan, and the little brat apologized. His mother screamed, Is that all? Just 300 yuan and that's it? No one is going to jail. The police said, After all, your son was the one who started it. Impossible, I said. I'm not giving him a penny. The police sighed. Look at what you've done to him. What kind of state was he in? I looked and saw that his eyelids were swollen. His nose was crooked. He was limping, and his whole body was bruised. He didn't look human anymore. We won't accept this. His mother was fierce, flaring at me with her head held high, making threats. This isn't over. I will make you pay for what happened today. Just wait. I cooperatively flashed a peace sign. When I got home, my daughter was sitting alone on the couch, silent and downcast. I thought she was worried about confronting the teacher and how that would affect her in class. So I plopped down next to her, wrapped my arm around her shoulders, and cheerfully said, Don't worry, sweetie. Your dad will find you a new school in the next few days. We won't deal with people like that anymore. Unexpectedly, she let out a sharp gasp, and I could see she was in pain. My nerves immediately tensed up where you hurt. I pulled her arm and rolled up her sleeve. Red burn. What happened? My wife rushed in upon hearing the commotion, saw it, then gasped, then hugged our daughter, asking, Baby, who did this? My daughter nestled into her mother's arms and burst into tears. Her cries felt like a dull knife, stabbing at my heart. I felt both heartbroken and furious. After a long time, my daughter finally stopped crying. It seemed she had been holding it in for too long. It was Clark. He poured hot water on me. Clark, is that the one I beat today? My daughter pulled out her phone, opened a video, and tossed it to me. You guys can see for yourself. It was a video. Clark was talking into the camera. Brothers, follow Clark. You'll never go hungry. Today, Clark will give you a big benefit and show you the most provocative big-breasted girl in our class. The camera panned down, and my daughter walked by from downstairs, probably just finishing gym class. Wearing a sun hat and had her jacket draped over her arm. Then Clark zoomed in on my daughter's chest. Isn't she provocative? Just ask if you think she's provocative. With breasts this big and not wearing clothes. Isn't she just trying to entice men? Then he poured a bucket of water over her. Splat! My daughter was soaked. Her wet t-shirt sticking to her body, her hair dripping down. So hot. She cried out in pain. Who did this? Clark was hiding in the hallway, laughing so hard he was in tears. Is this thrilling or not? The video ended, and in that short minute, I'd thought about killing someone more than a dozen times. I was gripping my phone so tightly it was squeaking. This little beast. I will never let him go. Baby, why didn't you tell your dad about this when it happened? My daughter softly replied. You all seemed too busy. A wave of guilt washed over me, gripping my heart so tightly that it hurt to breathe. Don't just stand there. Hurry and go to the hospital. My wife's voice was trembling, and her eyes were red. I then realized, right, going to the hospital is the priority. At the hospital, the doctor said my daughter was okay and prescribed some ointment. Just apply it for a few days, and she would be fine. My wife kept confirming that there wouldn't be any scars, and only then did she slightly relax. At this point, my daughter tugged on my hand and pointed to the doctor, saying, My dad is hurt too. What about that? During the afternoon when I beat Clark, I had gone a bit too hard, and my knuckles had split open. I smiled. It's nothing. Just minor injury. But my daughter stubbornly insisted. No. It must hurt. The doctor chuckled. If my daughter were half as sensible as yours, that would be great. I nodded. Yeah. Mine has been good since she was little. As I spoke, my nose began to sting. It was because she was too good that she had been bullied to this extent. By the time we got home, it was already midnight. My wife stayed with our daughter. I was on the balcony smoking, contemplating my next steps. My eyes caught a long string of WeChat messages on my wife's phone. I opened it up and saw that the crazy class teacher was posting in the parent group today. Crystal's parents set a very bad example, and I hope they will apologize immediately and write a letter of guarantee. A string of parents followed up with flattery. Yes. Yeah. I heard my son say, his father is really scary. The upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. I can't imagine what kind of child such a family can raise. The crazy teacher was thrilled by all the flattery and kept tagging my wife. The boss and Dave, our friends, and had already booked a private room for us. Dave was waiting at the door, and when he saw Clark, he immediately went up and slapped him a few times. You little bastard. You dare to mess with my daughter? You must be tired of living. Clark was already stunned from the beating and didn't dare to cry. He was whimpering instead. He dragged him all the way to the private room and threw him to the floor. I took out my phone and pointed at the video, asking, Where did you send this? Clark's face turned pale, and he curled up on the ground. Uncle, I really made a mistake, and won't do it again. I stepped on his face. You answer what I ask. If you dare say one more useless word, I'll kill you. Do you understand? Clark nodded frantically. Where did you send it? To the school forum. I quickly found the video on the school forum. It didn't take much effort. It was a hot post on the homepage with hundreds of comments below. The impact was unimaginable. You bastard! I punched Clark in the face, and he spat out a mouthful of blood, along with 2 broken teeth. Why do you keep picking on my daughter? He fell silent, trembling like a leaf. Even he didn't know why. There is senseless evil in the world, and those who believe that a single hand can't make a sound will eventually learn that a slap to the face makes the loudest noise. You think she's easy to bully? I pulled out my belt. Today, I'm going to teach you what it means when a bad person meets another bad person. Crap! The sound of the belt cracking echoed in the room. Everyone was smoking and smiling as they watched the scene. Clark huddled in the corner, desperately begging for mercy. "I'm sorry. Please, spare me." I ignored him. The belt broke, and Clark's eyes lit up, thinking he was finally free. Dave immediately took off his belt and handed it to me. "Don't be disheartened. We have plenty of belts." Clark rolled his eyes and nearly fainted. At that moment, Clark's phone rang. It was a video call from his dad. I answered it. "So, I heard someone is bullying you," I said. "I'm the one bullying your son." Then I pointed the camera at Clark. "Your son can't take the call right now, so you can talk to me." Clark was covered in blood. His school uniform turned into a mop. "Damn it, you better wait for me. If I don't kill you today, you won't know who the boss is around here," I replied. "Sure, I'll wait for you. I'm ready to take all of you down." He continued to make threats on the other end. I couldn't be bothered to listen and smashed the phone. Clark's dad arrived shortly after, bringing a dozen outed tough guys with him. Son, when he saw his precious baby almost beaten to death, his eyes bulged with rage. "I'm going to kill you." He was about to charge it. Our guys blocked him. "Dick, it's this guy," he said, bending over to a leading thug. "Take him out, and I'll pay you double what I promised." But that dick didn't move. Just stared at Dave and then pulled out a cigarette, respectfully handing it over. "Long time no see. I didn't expect to see you here." Dave didn't take it because he was busy holding up his pants. "All right, Dick. Looks like you're doing well," Dave said with a smile. "So now you dare to bring people to mess up my place?" "I wouldn't dare. It's a misunderstanding." The thug panicked and turned red. "I didn't know you were here. Even if I was looking for trouble with the King of Heaven, I wouldn't dare look for you." Dave shook his head, interrupting the thug's flattery. "My daughter Raider, who I've watched grow up, was bullied by your little brat. How do you plan to handle this, Dick?" Please don't call me Dick. I can't take it." The thug turned and slapped Clark's dad. "Hurry up and apologize to Dave." Clark's dad took the slap, but didn't dare retaliate. "How can you do that? We agreed before. The next arm will be The thug slapped him again. "What are you talking about? You trying to get yourself killed?" Clark's dad finally recognized the situation, his face shifting from white to red to purple, as if he were trying to color his face with the handprint. At that moment, Clark, squinting with his swollen eyes, Dad, save me." His dad was heartbroken and wanted to rescue his precious son, but he was blocked from moving forward. Gritting his teeth, he said to me fiercely, "Do you know you're breaking the law? If anything happens to my son, I'll make sure you go to jail." I'd already anticipated the turning around to grab a fruit knife from the fruit platter, the blade facing me, and handed it to him. "Now I'm giving you two choices. Either you stab me to death, or I'll go to jail for a few days, then come out and keep beating you until your son can't take care of himself, until he goes insane, until he's disabled. You think you're so tough, don't you want to kill me? Go ahead." I pointed to my chest. "Stab right here. No one will stop you, if you have the guts. Then do it." The tip of the knife pressed against Rachel, just an inch from my heart. I stared into his eyes, unblinking. Dave was worried about me and stepped forward, ready to take action, but I raised my hand to stop him. The atmosphere was tense, and no one spoke. At that moment, my phone rang. It was my daughter calling. "Hey, Dad, where are you?" I smiled and replied, "I'm out taking care of something." "Did you put on your medicine? Remember not to get it wet." I looked down at my fist, wrapped in the pink bandage my daughter had tied. My heart softened. "Okay, Dad remembers. You rest well at home these days, and I'll be back soon." My daughter obediently agreed. After hanging up, I felt a little impatient knowing she was waiting for me to return. I shouted, "Hurry up." He flinched and frightened took a step back. A knife clanged as it fell to the ground. Despite being a father himself, he didn't dare to play with his life. I kicked him in the stomach, sending him sprawling. I grabbed his chin and forced him to look up at me. "You had your chance, And you wasted it. Since you won't teach your son how to be a man, then keep your eyes wide open and watch how I torment him until he's no longer human. I sat on the sofa and beckoned to Clark, who was lying on the ground. Come here. He instinctively looked at his dad, but his father was also pinned to the ground by my men. Unable to move, he had no choice but to listen to me. Getting up and limping over, his eyes were filled with fear. I kicked him in the knee, sending him back to the ground. I told you to come here. Can't you understand human language? He grimaced in pain, sweat covering his swollen face. He had to hug his knees, curling into a ball and slowly rolling toward me. He rolled off course and ended up at Dave's feet, but Dave kicked him away. He crashed into the coffee table. A beer bottle fell, splashing him, and everyone burst into laughter. I stepped on his chest and cheerfully asked, "You little bastard. Do you know what the hell of tongue removal is?" He wiped his nosebleed, not daring to look me in the eye, and cautiously shook his head. I put on gloves and slowly opened the medicine box, which contained my newly bought surgical tools, tweezers and a scalpel, glinting with a cold light. The first layer of hell is specifically for those who spread slander with their word, those who are eloquent and smooth-tongued. When someone arrives at this layer of hell, they are first skinned, then have their tongue cut off. Once their tongue is cut off, it quickly grows back, and then it's cut off again, repeating this process until they're reduced to ashes. I laughed. Now I'm doing a good deed by letting you experience it early, so when you get to Yama, you can endure a little longer. His face changed dramatically, and he tried to run. Dave was already blocking him from behind and kicked him back. I held his mouth and squeezed out a smile I thought was kind. "Be good. Open your mouth." Instead, he tightened his lips, refusing to budge, so I stomped on his injury, and he screamed in pain. Finally, I quickly inserted an oral retractor to hold his mouth open. "If you don't drink this, you won't understand how to behave, right?" Mike Weezer's gradually moved closer to his pupil, and his survival instinct kicked in. He tried to struggle free from my grip. Two construction workers saw this and came over. He finally settled down. I pinched his tongue with the tweezers and pulled hard, then turned on the blowtorch and aimed it at him. The blue flame immediately seared his tongue, producing a sizzling sound and releasing a strong, burnt smell. Clark let out a scream like a slaughtered pig. "Don't go too far." His dad was on the ground, pounding the floor and shouting, "Spare him. Show mercy. Spare him." I pulled out my phone and opened that video, throwing it over to him. "Look at your son's masterpiece." Did he show mercy to my daughter? The water was just boiling. I signaled them to let go, and Clark collapsed to the ground like a rag doll. I squatted down, watching him in a half-dead state with great interest. "Is this too much for you?" His tongue was burnt, and he couldn't speak, only hissing as he gasped for air. I asked, "Did you think about today when you were bullying my daughter?" He shook his head. I sneered. "You threw boiling water on my daughter, didn't you? Did you enjoy it?" He seemed to remember something, his pupils constricting in panic, wanting to run again. I grabbed his collar and yanked him up, pointing at the kettle. "And I'll let you go," he cried, tears streaming down his face. His dad said, "Brother, I know I was wrong. I'll help him drink. I'll help him drink. Okay?" I ignored him, and he continued, "I'll pay. I can compensate you. Name your price, and I'll pay you anything. We're both fathers. Let's understand each other. We're both fathers." I interrupted him coldly. "Then, you should know how much I want to kill him right now. Two choices, he drink, or he die." I guess my expression must have been terrifying because Clark suddenly knelt before me, sobbing as he brought the kettle to his lips. The boiling water poured onto his wound at that moment. Clark writhed in pain on the ground, his facial features twisted beyond recognition. In this situation, I felt no sympathy whatsoever. Instead, I felt even more heartache for my daughter. His dad, with a sobbing tone, said, "He's already drunk. Can you let us go now?" I replied, "Finish all, no drop left, or I'll kill you." Clark turned to look at his father, his eyes filled with despair. His dad closed his eyes in pain. Just drink it. He's a madman. Clark had no choice but to get up and pick up the kettle. He drank a couple of sips, paused, then spat out blood. He drank a couple more sips, and spat again. Finally, he finished it, collapsing on the ground, blood and water gushing from his stomach, his mouth foaming. An ambulance pulled up outside the KTV. The owner didn't want them to disturb the guests. Several security guards grabbed Clark by his limbs and tossed him onto a stretcher. Hurry. Hurry. Dave followed the ambulance with two others, saying he would help clean up after me. I bought a cup of milk tea and a box of fried chicken to bring to my daughter. Previously, my wife had forbidden her from touching such food, claiming it was full of preservative, but I thought today could be an exception. When I got home, my daughter joyfully accepted the fried chicken, her eyes smiling. My wife frowned, clearly about to launch into one of her health rants. I quickly smiled and pleaded. It's fine to have it occasionally. It makes her happy. I pushed her into the kitchen. What did you do today? My wife asked. I recounted the events with some embellishment. My wife listened intently, gradually revealing an expression of admiration. Wait. They were both holding double-barreled shotguns against you. How did you take them down with just a knife? Have you seen The Matrix? In the blink of an eye, I bent down to dodge their bullets, then flicked my wrist, and the knife flew straight to hit their wrist. I was gesturing animatedly, trying to recreate the scene, but my body couldn't cooperate. Halfway through bending down, I couldn't get back up. Honey, help me up. My back is about to break. Keep boasting. At that moment, Dave sent me a video. The background of the footage was in a hospital. He had Clark's dad in a hallway, smiling as he asked, "You want me to help you call the police?" His dad replied, "Don't think you can escape the law. I won't believe that you're above it." Dave's expression didn't change. "The law can reach you. What nonsense are you talking about? Go ahead and report it. For something like this, you'll be out in at most 6 months." His voice deepened. "But as long as my brother is inside for one day, I won't let you off the hook for a single day. There will be times when you're alone, right? There will be places when the cameras can't see you, right? By the way, you're in procurement. I genuinely like to see your accounts and see if they're clean." Before he finished speaking, Clark's dad's expression changed. At that moment, Dick put his arm around Clark's dad's shoulder and provided an out. "It's just kids having a bit of friction. It doesn't have to escalate like this. Today's incident was indeed your son's fault. Let's call it a day in the world of the rivers and lake. Okay? Give me a face. Let's both take a step back, and this matter will be over. How about it?" Clark's dad seemed drained of all strength, collapsing to the ground in despair. Dave chuckled, giving the camera an okay gesture. I thought that would be the end of it. We were already discussing transferring the kids to another school with my wife, but then we were interrupted. Clark's mom came knocking on the door, banging it loudly. "Stop pretending to be dead. You think staying quiet at home will work? You've beaten my son like this. I won't let this go." As soon as I opened the door, claws out, I pushed down on her head, so she couldn't reach me. But her little arms and legs were still struggling. "Let go of me. Your whole family are bullies, picking on my son. I want to kill you all." I loosened my grip, and due to inertia, she crashed into the wall with a thud. It made a crisp sound, and it sounded like she had a good head. "You even hit a woman who understands family. A woman in her 40s calling herself a girl. How ridiculous." I was speechless watching her throw tantrum on the ground. My daughter kindly stepped forward to help her up. As a result, she mistook this kindness for weakness, grabbing my daughter's arm. "You little bitch. You're the one who harmed my son. I want you to die a horrible death," I said. "I don't hit women, but don't force me to not treat you like one." Upon hearing this, she immediately released her grip. A villain deserves a villain's treatment. Neighbors heard the commotion and gathered around, pointing at me. "This bully is picking on my son. Look at what he's doing." She pulled out a tablet and repeatedly played the video of me beating Clark at school. She thought this would incite public outrage. Unfortunately, she miscalculated. Everyone was longtime neighbors. Familiar enough to be like family. That slap was impressive. Have you trained before? Uncle D gave me a thumbs up. Wow, why didn't you call me when you were fighting? AB Al from downstairs, who had been working out for 8 years, flexed his 45 cm biceps. Is it because you don't see me as a brother? Seriously. You're hitting him so lightly? Haven't you eaten? Old Lou rolled up his sleeves, revealing his tatted arms. If it were me, I'd learn from City Light and toss him into the cesspool. Let him swim there for 3 days and nights. I said. Sorry, everyone. My methods were too gentle and embarrassed you. I'll make it up next time. Her mom trembled in fear and quickly put away the tablet, pointing at us with her rumbling finger and voice. You're all just a bunch of devils. Disaster never comes alone. Just as she left, the homeroom teacher started causing trouble again. I sent a notice in the WeChat group in light of Crystal's parents' previous atrocious behavior, which has severely disrupted the school's atmosphere. I have decided to suspend Crystal for a month and require her to write a 10,000-word self-criticism. The sycophantic parents chimed in. The teacher is formidable. This is exactly what should be done. The teacher is absolutely right. Kudos. I've heard the teacher is one of the top 10 outstanding teachers in the city. It truly lives up to its reputation. I wanted to send a middle finger emoji but realized I had been removed from the group chat. At the same time, I received a friend request from the homeroom teacher. Crazy woman. How long have you had this mental illness? She sent several 60-second voice messages. Without opening them, I knew the content. Acting dignified in the group, yet exposing her rude nature in private. I replied, this broken school, broken teachers and not even willing to stay. She responded, that you're not willing to? This is a key city school. You must be regretting it now. Let me tell you, unless you beg me, don't even think about coming back. I said, you really need to treat your mental illness. If you delay, it might become untreatable. Then she lost it again, sending voice messages to greet the health of my immediate family members. I directly blocked her. The world became quiet. The two crazy women's retaliation quickly began. That evening, Dave sent me a link. The title was truly alarming. The mafia runs rampant. Public violence in schools. Is anyone going to intervene? It was the video of me beating Clark. His mother hadn't blurred my face. In the video's conclusion, his mother cried bitterly to the camera. Our child is so well behaved. Yet he's being bullied like this. Is there anyone who can help us? Mother and son? Our child is so scared to go to school now. I don't know what to do. For dramatic effect, she had even put on makeup to make herself look bruised. The video didn't gain much traction, only a few likes and a single comment. This is a rule of law society. They can't be arrogant for long. I've already made their child drop out. Don't worry. I'm always on your side. That ID looked familiar. Was it the homeroom teacher? Dave said. They're planning to cyberbully you. Do you want me to help suppress the heat? I replied. Don't suppress it. Let it blow up. Let it get as hot as possible. That night, I posted looking for online trolls. I found over 1,000 accounts, continuously liking that video. The heat finally began to rise. Soon, follower count increased daily. In just one day, it shot up to the top of Weibo's trending topics. The discussion was high. I must admit, Clark's mom was truly a born actress. She held 3 live broadcasts, crying non-stop for 6 hours. The layers of her crying performance were rich enough for some young actors to take back as teaching materials. Dave and I switched to a small account, pretending to be devoted fans in the comments. We claimed to be victims too, continuously driving the narrative. Dennis's mom commented, my son Dennis was also bullied terribly by that Chen kid. Her mom replied, really? What happened to your child? Dave responded, he stole my spicy strips, broke my Ultraman, didn't finish his summer homework and wanted me to do it for him. Or else he'd tell my parents about the movies I rented in my drawer. I said, you remember those childhood incidents so clearly? Dave wiped a tear. Of course, I'll remember you for a lifetime. We chatted for an entire afternoon. Then it seemed Clark's mom and the homeroom teacher were beginning to feel close to her. I realized the timing was ripe. Then I encouraged them to expose my family's private information. They were so lifted by the flattery that without a second thought, they posted it online. I took screenshots one by one. Another crime added to the list. The public opinion continued to ferment. I held on to crucial evidence. The higher she jumped now, the harder she would fall later. The emotions in the live broadcast room were boiling. The atmosphere had been built up perfectly. Dave said he would bring the righteous truths to my home to confront me face to face. Clark's mom slammed the table and declared they would do it. Half an hour later, there was a huge commotion downstairs. I peeked out, and there were at least 80 spectators, if not 100. There were even quite a few local internet celebrities live streaming with their phones. Done. Come out. Clark's mom and the homeroom teacher, feeling as though they had gained a sense of superiority, stood confidently at the bottom of my building, hands on their hips, saying, "Aren't you tough? If you have the gut, come down and beat us all up. Let's see if you dare." In fact, our door had been wide open. My wife and daughter had gone to Dave's house. They could come in any time, but they insisted on performing, venting their grievances to the crowd. You have no idea how despicable this family is. They're practically the mafia. They beat people and refuse to take responsibility. Utter rogues. The crowd grew angrier. It's already 2026, and there are still such things happening. The homeroom teacher cried with tears streaming down her face. They even insult teachers. After the performance, they finally came upstairs. Upon seeing me casually sitting in a chair, they paused for a moment. That seemed different from what they had imagined. I wasn't crying, didn't admit any mistake, and definitely wasn't kneeling before them begging for forgiveness. That's him. That's the beast who put my son in the hospital. Her mom pointed at me, saying to the crowd, "Expose him." People raised their phone, making it bright as day. It was the first time I'd been filmed by so many people. I felt a rush of excitement and flashed a peace sign. "You still dare to act tough." The homeroom teacher was so furious she could breathe fire. "After all this, you're hopeless," I said. "Apologize for what? You insulted the teacher in the class group, hit someone at school, and you don't want to apologize. Plus, you put my son in the hospital." Clark's mom added, "Apologize, pay compensation, bow and admit your mistake, and I'll let you off." I said, "Is it just an apology that's enough? Don't you want any other compensation?" They looked at each other, thinking I really had the idea of resolving things peacefully. They greedily showed their true colors. "We also want 100,000 in medical expenses. They 10,000 word self-criticism. I want to hold a parent meeting and read it out loud in front of all the parents, so they know the consequences of defying the teacher." "Is that all?" I asked. They hesitated for a moment and said, "First, let's do these things, and then we'll consider whether to forgive you." "All right." I reached out my hand. "Let's start with the 200,000. They were stunned. "You're asking me for money? Are you out of your mind?" They turned around seeking support. "Everyone, look at how this person has no shame left." But no one responded. Everyone was staring at their phone, their brows furrowing deeper, just as they went upstairs. We sent out the clarification post, the video of Clark splashing water, the surveillance footage of Clark insulting my daughter, and the evidence Dave dug up of the homeroom teacher privately conducting tutoring classes. The facts were clear, and the evidence was solid. The bullet had been fired for a while and was now hitting its target perfectly. "So you're the ones who are shouting thief. You were the ones who bullied that little girl first, yet you still dare to turn the table. This plot has turned. Folks, I say this little brat deserves to be beaten to death. This is the first time I've seen someone wanting to cyberbully themselves." Clark's mom snatched a phone from a young man next to her, swept at it, and then smashed it on the ground, shouting at the top of her lungs, "It's all fake. Don't believe them. It's fake. He beat my son." The young man kicked her down, saying, "No, ma'am. Are you crazy? That's my phone. If you say it's fake, do you have any evidence?" A middle-aged man asked with a sneer. "Evidence?" I had. She seemed to remember something and made a call, saying, I have a witness. I'll have her talk to you." Then, in the bedroom, Dave's phone rang. Dennis's mom. Where are you? I'm right behind you. Clark's mom. Dave said in a high-pitched voice. Is there something you need from your little sister? The crowd fell silent as they watched Dave, with his scruffy beard, gold necklace, and a protruding belly, walk out of the bedroom. Oh dear, what's wrong with you? Clark's mom? He flicked his fingers with a flourish, feigning innocence. Have you been bullied? Who bullied you? Tell me, and I'll help you. Clark's mom's face turned pale, her brain short-circuiting. You're Dennis's mom? Even if they had never met, Clark's mom wouldn't be foolish enough to categorize such a creature as mom. Your child has also been bullied by him, right? Clark's mom grabbed Dave's chubby arm, as if holding on to the last straw. What are you saying, sister? Dave smiled cheerfully. Didn't we agree I'd frame him after you paid me? You haven't paid yet. When did I ever say I'd pay? You're planning to freeload? No, that's not what we said on WeChat. She finally reacted. You're all in it together, all of you. The onlookers didn't understand the intricacies of it all, that the term framed was enough to trigger their sensitive nerves. I did hit them pretty hard this turn. When you're not clean, the best public relations strategy is to muddy the waters. Isn't it just crying? Who can't do that? I wiped away a tear. Does anyone understand? We're so pitiful. A teacher and a wealthy family colluding to bully us? I'm just a weak ma'am. How can I compete with them? But, a young man hesitated to speak up. Aren't you the one who beat her son pretty badly? That was self-defense. Her son was hitting me just as hard. I raised my right hand. Look at my pinky. It's all peeling. In the crowd, our arranged brothers immediately picked up the rhythm. Insulting someone's daughter and beating the father is truly over the top. The crowd's emotions were ignited, and they began to condemn the two crazy women. All right, the homeroom teacher gasped. You've played us today. We'll see about that. Saying this, trying to leave, I stepped in front of them. Do you think my house is a market? You can come and go as you please. You're the ones who made this a big deal. Dave slammed the table, causing the teacups to jump. If this escalates, do you think you can escape? I found a few local influential social media accounts. From the moment they entered the door, it was live-streamed in full. The heat seemed to be consistently good. It even caught the attention of the principal, who hurried back from another city to intervene for the homeroom teacher. On the way, the principal called me multiple times, soothing me with kind words. I looked at the homeroom teacher, thinking that this crazy woman indeed had a strong back-in. If I let her off today, more children would surely suffer in the future. 2 hours later, the principal arrived. A thin middle-aged man. He immediately bowed and apologized to me. Miss E, your personal experience has brought a very negative impact on you and your family. I will definitely rectify the school's atmosphere and discipline and ensure that such bullying incidents never happen again. Quickly framing it as the homeroom teacher's personal behavior, cleaning his hands of the matter. This person was slicker than I had imagined. I can forgive them, but there are some conditions, I said. The principal immediately replied, please tell me. Within my capability, I will do my best to meet them. 200,000 in compensation, a 10,000-word self-criticism. And I want to hear the homeroom teacher read the self-criticism word for word. I pointed at the homeroom teacher. I want her to read it out loud. 200,000. Clark's mom nearly jumped up. You might as well go rob a bank. I laughed. Isn't that what you proposed before? You think it's excessive? Well, her face turned red, and she couldn't get a word out. If you can meet the above conditions, the principal said, then this matter can be considered resolved. No, first, do these things, and then we can talk about future matters. I said, you harmed my daughter. If there's forgiveness, it should come from her. It's all because she forced me to do this. The homeroom teacher suddenly flipped sides, pointing at Clark's mom and saying, I really didn't want to do that. I can gather the money, but let's forget about the self-criticism since I am also a teacher. Oh, so you know you're a teacher. I said, you've had half a day to think it over. You either do as I say, or I'll report your tutoring classes to the Education Bureau. Miss Dunn, don't be impulsive. The principal shot a look at the homeroom teacher. Hurry up and apologize. The parent meeting was set for the weekend. During this time, the homeroom teacher called me countless times, apologizing 1,000 times and asking me to forgive her and cancel the meeting. But I refused flat out. So she turned to her, asked my daughter instead. One day, my daughter showed me her phone, and the homeroom teacher had sent along with a message. The gist of it was, I'm your teacher, and I've always liked you. This incident was my oversight, but I've tried my best to be fair. Now I want to apologize and hope you can persuade your dad to cancel the parent meeting because it's harm for me too. Among the emotionally manipulative phrases, she included once a teacher, always a mother. No teacher wants their child to suffer. The teacher always knew you were a well-behaved and understanding student. I hope you understand that it's not too late for the teacher to mend fences. Please give her a chance to make amends. My daughter had never encountered this kind of situation before and was at a loss for what to do. She asked me, Dad, do you want me to forgive them? I said, you're the victim, and no one has the right to forgive on your behalf. I won't make any decisions for you, but Dad will always be your fallback. She nodded, unsure of what she was thinking. On the day of the parent meeting, my wife and I arrived early. My daughter was nestled in my wife's arms, not looking up. The other parents didn't yet know what was about to happen and were asking, it's not the end of the semester. Why are we having a parent meeting out of the blue? Clark, all wrapped in bandages, was huddled in a corner, trembling all over. Amid the noise, the homeroom teacher walked in. Everyone's eyes turned toward her in unison. The classroom fell silent, and you could hear a pin drop. When she saw me, her face turned pale, and she bit her lip, not knowing whom to signal. The parent sitting next to me poked my elbow and handed me two large bags made of cowhide, 200,000 in cash. I looked up and saw the homeroom teacher and Clark's mom gazing at me with hopeful expressions. They were still thinking along those lines. I said, when you do something wrong, you should apologize. There's no need for a teacher to keep struggling. I pointed at Clark. Get up there with her. Clark seemed to be in shock from me, not even resisting as he quickly climbed onto the podium. I said, reluctantly. The homeroom teacher took out a crumpled manuscript from her pocket and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Today, I gathered everyone here to ask you to supervise me. A while ago, I did something very wrong. Get me a microphone, I said. You were speaking loudly in voice messages. Why not now? At this point, everyone finally understood what was happening. The homeroom teacher complied. As a teacher, I shouldn't turn a blind eye to bullying on campus. I sincerely apologized to Crystal's parents, filled with 100,000 regrets. Her voice echoed through the entire floor, each word trembling. Parents whispered to each other, and the homeroom teacher turned crimson, as if she would bleed. As she read on, I felt something was off. She was skirting around the real issues, talking about how hard it was to be a teacher and how it was normal for kids to have a few frictions, suggesting there was no need to blow things out of proportion. For a solid 20 minutes of brainwashing, she finally said, Crystal, will you forgive your teacher? The other parents chimed in. It's not a big deal. Let it go. Let it go, I said. When I'm pressing your children's heads in a toilet, I hope you can also let it go. No one dared to speak up anymore. Do you have something to say, sweetheart? My wife leaned down and softly asked our daughter. Yes. Our daughter lifted her head, looking at the teacher and Clark, her gaze gradually hardening. I don't want to forgive you. She clenched her fists, speaking every word with conviction. Teacher, this isn't the first time I've told you he bullied me, but you said it was my problem. If it wasn't. But how can this be my fault? I just developed earlier than my classmates. Mom told me that puberty is the beginning of my becoming an adult. It should be a beautiful thing. But my youth almost turned into shame and humiliation because of you and Clark. These scars will always be there. Why should your lights allow you to comfortably live out the rest of your life? I held my daughter's trembling hand, giving her strength. She took a deep breath and said slowly yet firmly, I will not forgive you. The harm you caused will forever remain. And my hatred will also last forever. After saying this, she leapt into my wife's arms and burst into tears. Crystal, listen to your teacher. The homeroom teacher rushed over, reaching for her hand. I slapped her hand away. Don't touch my daughter. We'll slowly calculate the issues with your tutoring classes and the posts about your son. You've taken the money. You can't go back on your word, Flirk's mom shouted. I threw the money in their faces. Keep it to buy yourself a coffin. We'll see you in court. The homeroom teacher was kicked out of the teaching staff because of the tutoring classes. When the walls fall, everyone pushes. The earlier bribery scandals were also exposed. The once sycophantic parents formed an Avengers alliance and emptied her house to settle debts. In the end, no one knew where she went. Threatened by Dave with a mix of carrots and sticks, Clark's dad ultimately didn't dare pursue the matter of me beating his son. However, Clark's mom spread my personal information along with her son's post. I didn't miss a single thing. They paid my family $130,000 and wrote me a 10,000-word apology letter, bowing deeply in person to present it. In the end, that little brat dropped out of school. No school was willing to take him in. And he even developed a stutter. Then he went to work in an electronics factory. I ran into him last weekend in an alley, cornered and beaten up by a few thugs. I don't know what he did, but no one stepped in to help him. I found a good school for my daughter, and she continued her studies. Her academic performance steadily improved. It was only later that I learned the homeroom teacher leaked answers to her tutoring class students and encouraged classmates to isolate those who didn't attend the tutoring. She really deserved to die 1,000 deaths. Meanwhile, I reduced my work hours and set aside time each week to spend with my daughter. The matter has ended perfectly. In the restaurant, my wife, having enjoyed a hearty meal, stretched contentedly. Then her arm draped over my shoulder with a thud. There's something I've been meaning to ask you. I didn't sense the impending danger and continued gnawing on my ribs. What is it? It's about that day when Dave wanted you to give him a foot massage. It sounded like you often went. I jumped in shock. That was before we got married. I haven't been since, I swear. My daughter silently pulled out a membership card for a foot massage shop. Dad, I found this in your drawer. Then she went back to eating ice cream. Cold sweat broke out on me, I swear on my life. I really haven't been to such places since we got married. My wife was smiling, her face clearly saying, let's see how you spin it. Just then, Dave called me again. I gritted my teeth and answered on speakerphone, silently praying he wouldn't say anything weird. Gun, what's up? You free now? Let's hang out. The foot massage shop on King Yang Road I mentioned last time has opened a branch. The owner is my friend, and I got you a card. I casually left it in your drawer when I was at your place last time. Check it out. We should go together. Didn't you used to love foot massages? I quickly hung up the phone. I turned to my wife and said, you see? I told you I haven't been since getting married. She nodded. How many times did you go while we were dating? Behind my back? Oh, that perspective didn't occur to me. You'd better explain yourself clearly. I can't remember. That was over 10 years ago. Besides, the places I went were all legitimate. You want to go to all illegitimate places? Not really. All right. I was wrong. Honey, please forgive me. Help me persuade your mom. My daughter replied. I'm not Mom. I can't forgive you on her behalf. I said, you're using the things I taught you against me. Little girl.